everyone, and welcome to Engineered to Ask, brought to you by the College of Engineering here at the University of Nevada, Reno. This is your host, Anthony Kuhl, and today with me is Dr. Emily Hand, Associate Professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. Thank you for joining us today on the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. We're glad to have you. Now, so today, what we're diving into is the world of wearable technology, and Emily is going to help us get a better understanding of what can be done with this specific field of new devices. Before we get into the main topic for today, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to the field of engineering?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to tell people I kind of stumbled into my area of research, but also just kind of into my profession. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. I just didn't really know what subject. I really liked math, so I thought I would go that direction. And I actually got my undergrad here at UNR, and as a part of that, I was getting my math degree, and they made you take, which they still do, a couple of CS classes, and I was dreading them because I heard how hard they were. And then I ended up taking them. I really struggled in the first one, but about halfway through something clicked, and I was like, this is what I need to be doing. This is applied math. I get to do all the things that I love about math in an applied fashion. And then I kind of just fell in love with computer vision and machine learning through just faculty here at UNR that happened to be teaching some of the core classes that I took when I was going through the program. And since I knew I wanted to be a teacher, I knew I needed to get my PhD, so I kind of learned about research and then dove headfirst into that, and now I like to say kind of a teacher first, researcher second, because I love teaching so much, but they're definitely equal parts of my role here at the university.
Wow. I actually have a minor in computer science as well, so I understand a lot of those early classes. Well, they can be a little difficult in some areas, but I really enjoy being able to get into just the basics of programming.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a whole different way of thinking about the transfer of information language-wise, versus spoken language to go into an actual computer language.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that was the thing that I found so fascinating about it. Coming from the world of math where you were talking about proofs and things like that, I really struggled with the idea of the if statement and things that were true or not true. And so, I really struggled with the idea that one of the things just has to be true for the whole expression to evaluate to be true. And I'm like, that's not how math works, And
Exactly,
so I really struggled with that.
I started as a mechanical engineering major, so I totally understand that perspective of hold on, the math shouldn't have causality going on in it.
Exactly. Yeah, I really struggled with that. But once somehow it just clicked, I had great teachers, and it just clicked. And once it clicked, I was like, this is so incredibly powerful, and I can use this to kind of do the math that I want to do and solve problems. So.
Wow. So then from there, let's switch gears into our main topic for today, wearable technology. So I understand some use cases for publicly available wearable technology, think fitness and personal health data collection. But I know for certain, or I have a feeling at least, that that doesn't even scratch the surface of what's being explored in this field. So what are your opinions on the current state of things when it comes to wearable devices? Are there any breakthroughs that you know of that you think are exciting?
That's such a great question. I mean, we all interact with wearables in a way that no one really has in history, right? That everybody has a smartwatch or, we at least have smartphones, which are not wearables, but the fact that we have computers that we carry around with us is actually quite amazing. And now we have them on our wrists and people are wearing the Meta glasses and, things like that. So we really interact with them in a way that's amazing. And I think something that we kind of take for granted. The biggest thing I think that people are familiar with is basically, like you said, fitness trackers, right? So, and that involves basically any kind of wristband type application. But there's also the ones that you can wear a ring, and there's necklaces and different things that I've seen.
Oh, I haven't heard about the ring or the necklaces.
The ring, and I think it's called the Aura, and there's lots of different ones, but I think that's what it's called. And I've seen one of my friends has one, and I asked her, it's bulky. Think about your Apple Watch on your finger. It's pretty thick, and I think they'll get to the point where the hardware is thinner and they don't need so many sensors and so on and so forth. But I thought it was interesting. I asked her, I was like, what do you think about it? And she was like, I love it. She was like, I hate wearing a watch. I hate having things on my wrist, and I don't mind. She put it on her thumb, so it didn't feel particularly bulky. And then she said, she had just started using it, so it hadn't gotten to the point of yet recognizing her patterns. It was still in the learning process.
Mm-hmm.
But she was like, I got it for sleep, so I could have a better understanding of my sleep cycles and things like that. And so it does pretty much all the same things that your Apple Watch or maybe your Whoop band or whatever it might be does. And so that's interesting to me because a lot of these wearables can be so bulky that it's like if we can get smaller things that are more discreet, that maybe, we would be able to actually get more people to use them for health benefits and things like that. But that's kind of the one that everybody's really familiar with. Kind of the more kind of out there ones are like the Google Glass, which then, is more like the Meta Glass because they're cooler looking. And maybe they're like, in the right time. Google Glass was a little ahead of its time, and everyone's kind of getting a little more familiar with that, but I don't know that I would not consider that to be mainstream by any means. But the things that I think are really cool are things that really augment our ability to be humans, because I think a lot of people are interested in efficiency, and like a lot of the fitness tracking stuff is about that too. But I'm really interested in helping people interact better with other people, whatever that might look like. So I've seen some wearables that are like specifically contact lenses that help correct people's vision. So people that have like degenerative eye diseases, it'll like correct for that kind of thing, like beyond just, your glasses are your typical contacts. And so it can kind of sense what you're struggling to see and enhance that piece of it.
Oh, and like adjust in like real time.
Yes. And isn't that fascinating?
That's so interesting. Oh my goodness.
And I'm not sure where they are in terms of like the actual like commercial production of that. But I know that they're testing it and people use it. And so I find that to be fascinating because imagine, like you're losing your eyesight to glaucoma or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And you just feel, I used to see this rich world around me and now I'm missing out. And then somebody's like, oh, no, I've got you. I made this wearable that will take care of that for you.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of the like big leap forward you think we're going to make is like moving more in the direction of, well, we still keep like efficiency devices, like things set up for like tracking health data and things like that, but instead augmenting what we already have, like you mentioned with improving eyesight. And
yeah, I would say that's the thing is from my perspective, that's where I feel like the real value is because I'm very much interested in like allowing people to be more human, allowing people to connect better with each other. Okay, so how do we do that, right? How do we help get people more connected with each other using Meta glasses instead of just like, oh, my calendar is now on my eyeball, And I think from a lot of companies' perspectives, a lot of the companies that build these wearable devices, they're more focused on the efficiency aspect, especially the fitness industry. So I think that's why that's exploded first. But I think people are really feeling disconnected, and I think if we can use these devices to connect better, that's what I see as the next big area. I mean, like 10 years ago, I talked about, what do I think is the next big thing in CS? And I was like, virtual reality, augmented reality, because no one wants to sit on Zoom and talk to somebody. I want to sit in a room with my grandma and I want to see her sitting in the chair across from me, but we're on a video call, right? Like I want to see her whole body language, right? I want to see all the things that I'm missing when I just see a little box of her face.
Exactly, that level of personal connection.
Yeah.
That, especially in our digital age right now, we all feel so disconnected. I feel like when I look online, and I know that there are hundreds of thousands of people out there in like, even in comment sections on like YouTube and everything, but to actually get to interact with people at a higher level, I think that's very interesting too.
Yeah, and I think that's really where in my personal opinion, that's where the value add is, right? Like everyone wants to be more efficient, and that's good and fine too, right? But everybody really is longing for connection, right? Like that's what makes us humans, and social isolation has become a real problem. And so I think these devices really have the ability to help us with that.
Enhance our world and make us more human.
Yep, absolutely.
Wow. Now, moving on, I have to ask, what work are you currently pursuing here at the College of Engineering?
So I run the Machine Perception Lab, which is the intersection of machine learning and human perception, which I say kind of sounds like word salad. But what it really means is that I'm very much fascinated by how humans learn and perceive things, and I want to be able to model that using machines. And then I'm also so interested in the way that they do things that I'm interested in finding out better how they do things. And so we study human learning, and we try to build those concepts into machine learning, but then we also build machine learning models, and then we use that to study humans. So like we'll say, okay, I want a model that's going to recognize if people are wearing lipstick or not, right? And so we'll build a machine learning model that'll say lipstick, not lipstick. And you'll think, oh, it'll focus on the lips, right? And in fact, it does not. It focuses on the eye makeup, which is fascinating, a whole separate issue. But then we go and we take that model and we say, okay, now if I show images of faces to people and I have an eye tracker on them, what are they actually looking at when I ask them to identify lipstick? Are they just looking at the lips, or do they also look at the eyes and look at the rest of the face of makeup, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
lipstick is actually, and this is a silly example, lipstick, but there's a lot of other facial features that maybe, like smiling. Is somebody actually smiling? Do you look at the eyes or the mouth, But for lipstick, it's kind of a silly example, but it's easier to demonstrate because there's a lot of like nude shades of lipstick, right? Where maybe a woman who wears a lot of lipstick would be able to identify immediately, but somebody who doesn't wear a lot of lipstick would be like, I don't know, is she wearing lipstick? Let me look at her eyes. Oh, well, she has a lot of makeup on her eyes. Maybe she is wearing lipstick. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. And so we're interested in doing both aspects. So kind of better understanding how humans learn and also using human learning, which is incredibly efficient, to kind of teach us how to teach machines.
That's really interesting. So, like, it's the idea of taking, like, context clues that we already have, that we understand naturally just from, our daily lives and being human, things that came naturally to us, understanding that and trying to reinterpret that data for the computers to understand at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I'm very much interested in kind of building those context cues in and understanding both how humans use them in an explicit way and also making sure that the machine is using them in that same way, right? Because humans, while we always say, as of late, right, with ChatGPT and all these large language models, everybody's like, oh, ChatGPT does this better than humans. And you're like, humans do everything better than a computer, like, except for math. Like, we can let, the computer run the math and the complicated models, but humans are so incredible at the things that they do, and we have such little understanding of how they do them that it's like we're not even scratching the surface of what humans are capable of doing and modeling that properly. But as it relates to wearables, right, which is the topic for today, the work that we do in the lab, the main goal is to build wearable devices for people with social skills deficits.
Oh, really?
And so that might include somebody with ADHD, somebody on the autism spectrum, or somebody with a visual impairment that doesn't get to access the world in the way that a neurotypical person with perfect vision does. And so we're trying to help those people improve their social interactions by understanding facial expressions, understanding perceived emotions, body language. We even work a little bit on language processing, understanding humor and sarcasm and those kinds of things so that we could eventually provide real-time feedback to someone in a social situation to say something like, that was sarcasm, this is what they meant. Actually, you're standing a little bit close, you might want to back up.
Whoa,
That kind of
okay.
stuff.
So it's taking a computer, giving it information so it's able to better interact with humans, so that way it can give that information to someone who's having difficulties interacting in their daily life.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So ideally, that would be some kind of wearable, and what that wearable looks like is different for each of these populations. So somebody with
Yeah.
a visual impairment might be fine with glasses that have an earpiece that kind of just talk to them. Somebody maybe on the autism spectrum might like something that's a little less bulky that they don't have to feel all the time. So maybe a necklace that they could wear or a clip that they could wear on their shirt so it's not actually touching their body.
Yeah.
So we're not at the point of the actual wearable development yet. We do a lot of the back end stuff. So we build the systems that do the body language recognition, the facial expression understanding, and that stuff.
No, of course. And, you can't have a wearable without having all the back end first. You
Right.
have to have all of that software built
Yep.
before you could even get to that stage. So.
Yes.
No, that totally makes sense. That is really fascinating. I think you've really given our listeners a lot to chew on today. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Emily. One last question before we finish things up. If a future student is interested in getting involved with this sort of research, what sort of topics of interest do you think that they should be exploring?
That's a good question. So it's important for students that are doing this kind of work to have a good understanding of computer vision or natural language processing, machine learning, and AI. But I always tell students, you're going to get those things in a normal CS curriculum, but what you should think about is what other perspectives you bring in, right? So don't think you have to just be focused on computer science and computer science alone. A lot of the work that I do is in psychology, sociology, behavior science. I've taken quite a few classes in the psychology department, and I work a lot with their faculty. So if you have an interest in people, and I think if you have an interest in machine learning from the perspective of modeling brains, you should try to learn a little bit about the brain and about people, and that'll give you a step up for sure.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
And a big thank you to everyone who's listening out there. We greatly appreciate you stopping by. If you'd like to know how you can get involved with this sort of research and more here at the University of Nevada, Reno, you can visit our website. The link will be in the description. If you liked this discussion or would like to hear other interesting engineering-related topics, please like, comment, and subscribe. It's the easiest way to keep up with this series and let us know that we're doing a good job. Until then, this has been Engineered to Ask.